Eddie, great to see you. 2 years ago, we sat in this very dressing room, I think with your first days as Newcastle United manager. Does it feel like 2 years? And if I'd have said to you then that Newcastle would be where they are now back then, would you believe me or not?
Yeah, I'm sort of torn because it does feel quite a long time, but then on the other hand, it doesn't. It feels like it's gone really quickly. So slightly torn with the answer. No, I wouldn't have believed that we would be in this position so soon. I think the first objective was to stay in the Premier League. Last season was to try and consolidate and build the team progression, and we did that, I think, a lot quicker than maybe even we thought.
2 years into the Eddie Howe tenure, but I think we need to talk about 2 weeks of an international break. How much was that needed for you, but how big of an impact has that had on the players after such a tough run before it?
Yeah, I think probably wasn't needed for me. Off the back of the last result and performance, I was very keen to keep going. Yeah. But sometimes these things are a blessing in disguise because it enables you to stop and analyse and reflect properly. Yeah, it's been a difficult couple of weeks because, as always, the group is smaller, lots of players go away. Hopefully they all come back in good condition. And we've got a really intense period coming up with a squad that's stretched with injury. So, yeah, it's a slightly difficult period ahead potentially for us with the amount of games we have, but I believe in the players we have.
You mentioned the I word there, so I'm going to go there. I mean, 14 players missing through injury, through suspension, through other things as well. Have you ever experienced anything like, not just in your managerial career, but in your football career? And dare I ask how it's looking now? Yeah,
no, it's been an unusual spell because I think we've just lost players during games. So as the games have come thick and fast, as they will do with the season we're having with the Premier League and the Champions League and Carabao Cup involvement as well. So, and we've ended up losing players in those games to some strange injuries, yeah. some really bizarre ones, which sometimes you can't do anything about. Then, of course, we've had a couple of suspensions, which has sort of really hurt us because fit players you can't use. There's nothing more frustrating than that. And that leaves us in the position we're in. But I think all these things that test you make you stronger. But this is going to be a testing period for us. December is jam-packed full of games. We don't have a huge amount of players to pick from. The injuries that we've suffered, the majority are longer-term injuries, as in they'll be back probably in January. Looks different, but in January we don't have the fixture congestion we have now. So, no, I've probably never known a period like this, but it's something we'll just have to adapt to.
You kind of touched upon it there, but how big of an impact does a difficult period like this have on moulding a team's character, a team's personality, and on a team, I suppose, that already had bags full of character beforehand?
Yeah, I think that's the positive side of where we are right now is I've never doubted the players' character. I've never doubted our ability to be resilient, to deal with difficult situations. We're going to need that in abundance at the moment. We're going to need everyone to stand up and give more. So, yeah, I've got no doubt we've got the mental capability to deal with this. It's the physical probably capability is where we're going to be stretched and ask questions. And let's see how we get on.
Obviously, it was left off against Bournemouth. There was that fan altercation with Kieran Trippier. The fan has since apologised on social media for that altercation. But was that almost a microcosm and synonymous with the level of expectation now that there is at Newcastle United after your success of the 2 years?
Yeah, possibly. I think that these things always get blown out of proportion of the actual reality of what the moment was. I think the moment was a frustrated supporter, which we understand. I think I'd probably include everyone Newcastle related in that stadium was frustrated and annoyed at what we'd seen. So I've got no problem with that expression. And also sort of got no problem with Kieran's reaction because Kieran cares deeply. He's emotional, disappointed. And it was almost a good thing, I think, it happened for us. And I think that's how we have to look at moments like that. It's just how much people care about their football club. And we share that responsibility greatly.
Speaking of the fans, there's obviously a generation of Newcastle United fans that have never known the word success, really, at the club. In the wider form, how much of a motivation is that to you, to the players, when you talk about hopefully bringing silverware to St James's Park?
Yeah, I think it's a huge driver for us from very early in my reign here. Well, actually, before my reign started, that was the goal, that was the aim, and that won't change until we get there. And then if we get there, you'll want more. So it's driving us. I think the supporters are driving us. The unity that we've had together has been very special. We need to keep that and enhance that and grow that from our side as the playing side. And I'm really excited about the future. You know, regardless of injuries, that's a short-term thing, but the longer-term future of the club, I think, is in a great place.
You saw a man that's synonymous with Newcastle United's success over the last few weeks, Keegan. How good friends are you becoming kind of away from the cameras now? And what do two Newcastle United managers, both past and present, talk about away from everything?
Well, all things Newcastle. That's Kevin's someone I admire greatly. I respect, not just for what he did for Newcastle, but what he did for football. You know, he's a once in a generation type player, and then manager, and I think he's just achieved some very special things. And he's obviously got a bond with the supporters that is so unique. There's such a love there, I think, between both Kevin to the supporters to Kevin. And I think just for me to spend time with him was really, really beneficial. I'd never sort of impose myself on him. I don't think that's right. He's got his life now, and but he needs to know, and I'm sure he does, that he's got an open invitation to come and see us. We'd love him to come and share the love with the supporters. I think that'd be a great thing for him, because I think there's so much love for him here to share.
So looking ahead to the short term, you were frustrated against Dortmund. Bournemouth seemed like that step too far. How do you feel about December and this incredible run of fixtures that could have such a huge impact on Newcastle's season?
Yeah, I think as always, it's a cliche in football, and you're probably tired of hearing it, but we have to take the next game as our priority, and that next game is Chelsea, and then we'll worry about the other games afterwards. You know, Chelsea are in good form. They're a team that are definitely improving rapidly, highlighted by their last game against Manchester City, where I thought they were really impressive. So, really tough game against a top team, top manager. So yeah, really good start to the run of games we have.
So when you're playing against Mauricio Pochettino teams, what sort of challenges do they provide on a match day?
Well, I think firstly with his teams, they're very energetic. Play at a very high intensity. You have to be very fit to compete with them, which I think we are. They always play good football. They're very clever. He's a very, very good manager, very experienced. And I think he's done a really good job in terms of moulding that team that he inherited now into a very functional, strong unit, and he deserves a lot of credit for his work.
Do you feel like they're starting to realise all of the potential that many of us, I suppose, in the media were talking about at the start of the season with the signings and with Mauricio arriving?
Yeah, very much so. I think they've got a really good mix, actually, of youth and experience. They've signed a lot of young players, really talented players. Sometimes takes time to bed into a new football club, and they've got some really experienced wise heads in there as well that are helping them. So I do think they're beginning to gel. I think from our side, you know, we've been very, very strong at home. Our last home game here in the Premier League was a brilliant performance and result against Arsenal, and I think we need the mentality to pick up from where we left off in that game.
You marked, in a strange quirk of fate, that's how football works, I guess, but you marked your 1-year anniversary with a win over Chelsea, that Joe Willock goal at a raucous St James's Park just before the World Cup break last season. If you could repeat that sort of performance, that sort of result, how massive would that be ahead of what is another huge week for Newcastle in the Champions League?
Yeah, I think momentum is such a key word in sport, and I think that we've lost our last 2 games, but I think we have to remember they're in different competitions. And so our Premier League form in the main has been very strong. We're back into the Premier League, and the message has to be, let's continue our strong home form, our strong performances at home, not just the results, the performances. Remember that day well with Joe Willock's goal, and the atmosphere was raucous, as you say. We were in a different moment. You know, we were playing 1 game a week, and I think that was just before the World Cup break as well. So it was a really special game. Now, different moment, different game, but we need the same mentality.
Just finally, we tend to do one of these, fortunately for you, only one of these per season, where I have to sit down with you or you have to sit down with me. Let's fast forward a year. What would you want to be talking about in your 3rd year as Newcastle United manager, should it happen?
Well, I think an obvious one, I'd love to be sat here talking about winning a trophy for Newcastle. I'm definitely not going to put pressure on the players to say what trophy, but that has to be our aim, and that will continue to be our aim for as long as I'm here.